Imagine a world where each person has access to their basic rights. A world where everyone is equal. Imagine a world where each person will have an equal share in each single seed of wheat. Where each child has the freedom to learn. This Ramadan, we ask you to feed the fasting in 14 countries around the world with AMA. Provide an iftar box for 100 Rand, a hamper for 1,500 Rand, or feed a village for 15,000 Rand. Donate today at Africa Muslims Agency and imagine the difference you can make.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. My dear honorable viewers of YouTube and Facebook here from Al-Quds Connect at Masjidul Quds, I greet you with the universal greetings of peace, love and mercy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace, mercy and blessings of Allah shine upon you all, your families and friends. What a beautiful Sunday afternoon, mashallah, the 10th of April, coinciding with the 8th day of Ramadan, 1443. And alhamdulillah, here at Masjidul Quds, we have started a very interesting and enjoyable series of discussions on positive parenting. And with none other than my esteemed guest sitting on my right hand side, Dr. Ebrahim Hoosain. Dr. Ebrahim Hoosain, I greet you and welcome you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just one correction, it's Hoosain Ebrahim.
Oh, Dr. Hoosain Ebrahim, mashallah. And how are you on this beautiful afternoon, Dr. Hoosain?
Alhamdulillah. Good to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share what I have today with the rest, all of you out there.
Alhamdulillah, I must say, yesterday when we started this discussion, alhamdulillah, we've had a very good viewership, and I must congratulate you because of the very positive feedback we had on the program of yesterday, and I'm sure for today as well. I must congratulate you, especially on the 7 factors that you mentioned yesterday which affect behavior. Would you like to briefly make mention of that, especially for the benefit of the viewers who have tuned in for the first time today?
Sure. Basically what we did yesterday is we looked at the factors that affect behavior and we looked at the goals of misbehavior. And in brief, the 7 factors that we looked at was temperament of the child, position of the child in the family. We looked at the context in which the behavior occurred. We looked at besides those are the 3 major factors. We then went on, if I may refer to my paperwork, we looked at life's experiences, how that affects behavior. We then went on to looking at the gender of the child and generalization and our notion of what is right and what is wrong for a boy or a girl. We said that we must move away from that. And then we looked at 2 other important factors, which was the stage of development at which the child is, where at what stage of development is the child meeting the developmental stages, and if not, how does that affect behavior? So in brief, those are the 7 factors that we looked at. And from there, then we moved on to the goals of misbehavior. What is the child really achieving by misbehaving? And we looked at various factors there. We looked at the child wanting to gain attention, power, revenge, display of inadequacy, excitement, peer acceptance, and superiority. And these were spelt out in that. It's a pity that our timing is so short. We only have basically 1 hour. Otherwise, we can go into much more detail and give examples of the types of goals and how we can identify it. But this information is available if they do contact us via Masjidul Quds.
Most certainly, I think Dr. Ibrahim, Dr. Hoosain Ebrahim, this particular program can actually be a stepping stone for more live interaction and live workshops to have in the near future here at Masjidul Quds, inshallah.
Inshallah,
I just
definitely.
need to tender an apology for Dr. Salim Parker, who can't be here today, but I've also spoken to his young, vibrant daughter, Yumna Parker, because I would like things to come from a different perspective, from a youth perspective, also to powerfully interact with you. So hopefully Yumna or some of the youth will be on the program shortly, also to interact with you on this particular issue, inshallah.
Definitely, definitely.
Taking into consideration your discussion, your beautiful and interesting discussion that you had, I've realized that it's important for us to take note of feelings and listening to feelings and emotions of the children. Would you like to elaborate on that? How is feelings interrelated with behavior?
Sure. It's important for us to look at feelings both positive and negative, and I'm going to expound more on the aspect of feeling and why it is important. But before I start off with that, I would like to just make a comment here that if we look at human beings are just in line with feelings. Like fish swim, it is natural for the fish to swim. Birds fly, it is natural for humans to feel. Where that feelings come from, how it comes, that is just Allah's creation. We feel and then we act. And I'm going to elaborate on that, in that when we feel bad, how do we react to the situation? How do we react to subsequent situations? If, for example, you are in a PTA meeting and you've got this fantastic idea of wanting to raise funds, first of all, you don't have the courage to stand up. But here you've plucked up all that courage and you stand up and you say, this is my idea of how we can raise funds. And that chairperson just tells you, that is impractical, please sit down, let's move on to the next point on the agenda. How will you feel? How are you going to react? And what is going to happen subsequent to that? This example shows you how behavior is interrelated to feelings. When you feel bad, you will behave bad. But how we nurture that behavior, how we're going to express that behavior, is a skill that we are going to learn, and it is a skill that we are going to teach our children. So we need to accept the fact that feelings are there, you cannot get away from it. Whether it is positive or negative, that feelings is going to be there. And the same way that that feelings are there with us, sometimes we express it, sometimes we just keep away, shy away, and keep quiet. The same with our children, that feelings are there. But what happens really when we are out there, when we are interacting with our children? When our children are feeling upset, or let's use a more common example, when our children are feeling scared. How do we react? We tell our child, there's nothing to be scared of. What have you done? You've washed away a real feeling in that child. So what I'm saying is here that feelings are real. And we need to learn to acknowledge these feelings. We need to attach a label to it. We need to acknowledge it. And if we can acknowledge it, we can learn the skill of how to alter the behavior. Remember, we're not going to be there all the time to protect these children, number one. Number two, we can't make right every time something goes wrong with our children. They need to experience life as well, because it's going to make them better. It's going to make them better adults at the end.
Course.
So we need to learn to recognize feelings. We need to learn to accept feelings. We need to learn to put a label to that feeling and then acknowledge the feeling. And once we've acknowledged the feeling, 4 important steps that I've mentioned there. Once we've acknowledged the feelings, we can then move on and say, it is okay to feel scared, or it is okay to feel upset, or it is natural to be scared. I give you an example of my grandson, okay? Somebody knocked on the door, and he always has this concept of him wanting to knock on the door. But here, somebody else was knocking on the door, and he must have been so involved in something that it gave him a fright, and he ran to me. And for me to have said, why are you scared? What's happening? It would have washed away that feeling. He would have felt very dejected and rejected. It's strong words, but that's what's really happening. But I had to sit him down and I had to say, it's okay to be scared. But your grandfather is here. So come, let's see what we can do. Even though he's not verbal, I mean, he's only 2 years old. But children have those feelings, and you need to acknowledge it.
So sorry to come in here. Are you saying then that we need to nurture a sense of responsibility into our children? At which age onwards? Because if you look at the Sharia Islamic law teaches us that from the age of 7, you must encourage your children and learn them responsibility about the performance of Salah. And by the age of 10, you must actually reprimand them. So does that equate to what you are saying about nurturing that sense of responsibility into them?
Yes, importantly, and I'm going to use this example because this is an example that's always been quoted. In fact, I remember at one of my meetings when I was still with the Parent Center, one of the parents got up and said, yeah, but you need to hit the child if they don't read Salah. But would it have been necessary to hit the child if you had nurtured that idea from the beginning?
Yes.
Right? You know that these toddlers, 2 years old, they're going to run over you if you're going to read Salah.
Of course.
Okay? And all of us, we strive to have that sukoon when we want to read our Salah. But at the same time, how are we going to teach the child that Salah is important?
Sure.
If you don't take the child, let the child run over the child. I'm open to correction here, Sheikh. Maybe you can fill us in that when our Prophet ﷺ had his 2 grandsons,
Yes.
Imam Hassan and Imam Hoosain, he used to take them and they used to climb on him and they
Yes.
used to run over
Yes.
him. So this shows you what you need to do. That nurturing is not only from 7, that nurturing is from the beginning.
Before, yes.
It's like, for example, when the baby is born, okay? The baby doesn't inherently have a smile. But that happiness, that feeling that the child shows comes out with that smile, but that smile is learned because we smile to the baby.
Yes.
So we are nurturing that acceptance of that feeling, and the acceptance is showing a smiling face. I mean, many a times when I do these workshops, we have a whole list of faces. Today I feel sad. Today I feel happy. You know, and you've got the smiling face and you've got the crying face. It's feelings. And you need to acknowledge that feelings and The same with our children. We need to learn to acknowledge that feeling so that we can move past that stage of the child acting out. If you acknowledge the feelings of a child, would it be necessary for the child to act out? I would refer to a situation where you have a teenager that wants to commit suicide. I mean, we have that rife in our society at the moment, in our community at the moment. That child, that teenager is not going to tell you, I want to commit suicide. Why? Because the child hasn't been listened to, and we're going to come to that in this session where we're going to talk about listening skills. But the feelings haven't been acknowledged, and the child is going to act out. And the way the child acts out and shows how they feel is doing things that are not acceptable. So when I say that we have to accept feelings of our children, whether positive or negative, I'm not saying we need to be accepting of that particular behavior. We're going to rectify. We're going to show them appropriate ways in which they can express their feelings.
In fact, that would have been my question to you. I actually wanted to ask you, because I hear you say we need to accept all feelings of the children, positive and negative. So if you say that we need to accept the negative feelings of children, are you then saying or implying that we must accept the negative behavior of children as well?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. We're going to be accepting of feelings, okay? But the way it is expressed is what we're going to teach our children. Remember, these skills, it takes time for us to learn these skills. It's not something that just happens overnight. Because a lot of these skills needs to become second nature as well. Okay? So, and I would actually refer to the question you asked me about discipline yesterday.
Okay.
It's not something that is going to take place overnight. These skills are not for the faint-hearted or the lazy one. I'm sorry, I'm putting it that way, but there's no other way in which to explain. It's something that you, as a parent, you need to work on it. You need to make it part of yourself. You need to believe in it. And if you believe in it, you will be able to help your child in expressing that feelings or that negativity, if I may put it that way, in a way that is more acceptable. We're not here to smoothen out the road. We're here to show them how to work around a problem, how to problem solve, and how to have a solution that would be amicable and acceptable to all of us.
Most certainly, I think we need to elaborate actually on what discipline is, because I think discipline means different things to different people. Discipline for some people can mean taking a belt and taking a rod and hitting the child a severe beating. I don't think that discipline, and I'm not the expert, you're the expert, so can you maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, look, the thing is, like I mentioned yesterday, I'm a very strong proponent of no beating, okay? I believe that you can talk to the child, and by talking to the child, you can listen to what the child is going to be saying, and you can give direction in the way that is conducive, and it's basically problem solving together, okay? There are ways in which we do positive disciplining where there is time out, there is, I'm too upset to talk to you now because this is how I am feeling. You see, it boils down back to feelings. How do you feel as a parent? Look, emotions will always be there. We don't have the right to choose emotions. These emotions take place because of certain factors that have taken place, certain behaviors that have taken place, certain words that have been said. That emotions are going to be there. So we're not free to choose that emotions. But we are free to choose how we're going to respond to that emotions. And the same with feelings. That feelings come there naturally. If somebody dies, you are going to feel sad. It's not something that you can wipe away. But how you're going to handle that sad feeling is what I'm saying here. I mean, you find that somebody goes and commits suicide after they lose their partner. Okay? That feeling is very, very strong. But if not addressed properly, then that would be a resultant, that suicide would be a resultant. Take, for example, a teenager that wants to commit suicide or has committed suicide. What led to that? A lack of acknowledgement of feelings, a lack of listening to, a lack of direction. We are quick to give accolade to a positive feeling. Okay? Child is happy because they got an A grade in maths, and I'm using the same example again. And I mean, you come and you say, "Oh, well done, you did very well in maths." So we acknowledge that. But when the child is feeling sad, we don't acknowledge it because we want to sweep it under the rug. And that festers like cancer.
Yeah.
If we're not going to attend to it, it's cancer. And this is why looking at emotions and feelings is so important. You cannot move away from it. Feelings and emotions is what makes a human being. And we need to teach our children how to utilize those in a proper way.
Most certainly, most certainly. I think the crux of the problem here is that as parents especially, and as adults, we need to have those listening abilities, those listening skills and the abilities to be able to pick up. And as I always say, as you made reference to suicides being committed, as a community sometimes we are very quick in condemnation, condemning and saying this person is going straight to hell. But do we have infrastructure? Have we picked up that there's a problem in some of these kids? What was their state of mind at that time when they did it? Did we reach out to them? Those are the issues that really concerns me and that I'm very, very worried about. Do we as a community have those particular infrastructures to be able to listen, to be able to pick up these problem areas and to be able to bring solution to this?
Very importantly, you touched on a very important point, listening. How do we listen? And this is one of the skills which we need to inculcate, we need to make it part of ourselves. We need to teach ourselves the skill of listening properly. And basically, listening can be divided up into two parts. Your one part is listening attentively with the full attention. Give you an example. Child is watching TV or playing PS4 or whatever game he is playing in the family room or the TV room. Mother has to prepare supper. And she's stressing because dad is going to come home, all the children need to be fed, so the mother wants to get the supper done. So she's busy in the kitchen. Something goes wrong in the living room. And the child starts shouting and the child starts acting out. And the mother says, "Keep quiet." Shouting from the kitchen, "Keep quiet, I'm busy with cooking." Or, "What's happening there? What's going on?" And I ask myself, you're standing in the kitchen and you're asking the child, what's going on there? Are you really listening to the child? Or are you concentrating in getting the food done? So when I talk about full attention, you need to put that food aside. You need to switch off that stove if need be. Move into the situation, look the child in the eyes and say, what is really happening? Tell me. And I am sure that child will be able to tell you this, or whatever the case is. But what impression are you giving that child when you are shouting from the kitchen there, what impression are you really giving? Number one, you are telling the child it's okay to shout. Number two, that whatever problem you got there is not important. I got more important things to do here. So do whatever you have to do. The child's feeling of neglect comes. And now you compound it over the years. And then you get a suicide and you ask, what did I do wrong? And that is just one example, Sheikh, one example. There are so many other examples. And it happens to all of us. You know, what we just sometimes react to a situation and we lose our cool. It happens to the best of us. Wallahi, it happens to the best of us as well.
Definitely.
It is a conscious effort that we have to make. It still happens to me as well. And sometimes I need to take a step back and say, hey, what is really going on here? Or sometimes I need my wife to tell me, you're losing it.
Yeah.
You know? So it's not a once-off thing that you are going to learn.
Yeah.
It's something that's ongoing all the time. Sometimes the pressures of life, of everyday life, becomes hard for us as adults. And we do get embroiled in things that takes our attention, and we feel that, you know, we need to attend to this urgently. And what is happening there with the child is not that urgent. But sometimes we need to reawake ourselves with that listening skill to say, you know what, I'm going to attend to this now, and I need to just go and say, tell the child, you know, give me 2 minutes and I will come and see to you. Because even that is telling the child, I'm listening to you, but just give me, I need to sort this out. And you will think that it doesn't apply to a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. Believe me, they understand you very well. Because it comes in with the second part of your listening skill, which I'm going to be talking about, is that empathic nature that you have with them. Is to be able to feel what they are experiencing without being in their shoes. Because if you can feel what they are feeling, you will be able to respond in a way that they will feel, my parent is listening to me. You, at the same time, you are teaching them a skill of listening. And with that skill of listening, you also teaching them that it is okay for me to express my feelings. So you see how the two then gets tied up. Okay? And that second part of the listening skill, which is important, is how we respond to them. So it's not only going and saying, okay, I'm listening to you now. No. You know, you have to talk in a way that you're going to engage them.
Yeah.
You know, I take it from, Allah has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen to twice as amount as what you talk.
Allah Akbar. That's beautifully said. I was just thinking while you were talking, what came to my mind is when you refer to behavior. Where does our children learn this poor and bad behavior? I've noticed that instead of people giving, or parents giving proper attention to their children, they have substituted themselves with giving their children phones. I mean, children of 2 years and 3 years old know exactly how to switch on the phone and use the phone. And they watch all this kiddie stuff. And I've heard stubborn children giving back chat to their parents, and then the mother would say, baby boss. As if to say, she's giving the right of where the baby is the boss. What kind of development is this that takes place here? And what will be the ultimate result of such behavior?
You know, you can look at it from two viewpoints. Basically, if children are not listened to, they're going to act out. When they act out, that's when we respond. So what are we teaching our children? It's okay to act out. I will then respond to you. Okay? So we're inculcating that misbehavior. What we need to do is, we need to rectify the behavior. We need to tell them that that behavior is not acceptable. It's okay to feel bad, but you don't act out in that way, and then show them appropriate behavior. Moving on to your point as to, we are encouraging a behavior of the back chat or the type of misbehavior that comes. And this goes into the goals of misbehavior. What are we teaching our children that they can accomplish by misbehaving? A good example is where you give them that full go ahead as to operate the way you want to. Okay? So you're allowing that to take place. The child feels that now I am in control. I can do what I want to. So it doesn't matter. So if I tell you as my parent that no, I want to do it this way, it's okay, because you've allowed it from the beginning. Okay? It reminds me of you talking about the kiddies program, and I sometimes sit with my grandson on the iPad, and he goes into a program, and I know that the program is not conducive, and I tell him, no, Yusha, I don't like this. No, it's not a good program, and we try to move away from it. Okay? It's important for us to instill this from the beginning, because if not, the child feels that you've allowed me, why are you stopping me now?
No, yes.
You see the mixed feelings we are giving to the child. The child is in a complete quandary as to what must I do? You allow me here, now you're telling me no, I can't do this, and now you're telling me I can't do it? What are you really teaching the child?
Yeah.
You know? The same thing with when the mother's shouting from the kitchen. What's happening? What are you teaching the child?
Yeah.
Not only am I teaching the child that I'm not interested in what's happening to you now at the moment, but I'm also teaching the child that shouting is okay.
Yeah.
So if I shout back as a child to the mother will turn back, why are you talking to me like that? Why are you shouting? But what have you taught? And that comes onto your discipline issue, where you are going to hit the child, you're going to take the belt out, and you're going to hit the child. You're telling the child it's okay to hit. So violence is okay.
Yeah.
So if you want something, you want to accomplish something, you need to use violence. These subtle messages that we give our children are so, so important. And this is why I always talk about, we need to look at both verbal and non-verbal. We need to look at conscious and unconscious behavior. We need to be aware of it. And hence my saying that discipline is not for the faint-hearted or the lazy. It's something that we need to take into consideration all the time, because parenting is an ongoing process. I'm a grandfather now, but my son is still my son. He's still my child.
Yes.
You can't get away from that. So you're always going to be a parent. Whether you are 70 years old or whether you are 26 years old, you're still going to be the parent. And there is still going to be that parent-child relationship. And if we don't consciously start in inculcating good, positive ways, that is going to go on, and it's just going to fester and fester and get worse.
Most certainly, maybe Dr. Hoosain, taking everything in consideration what we have mentioned, maybe this will be a good time now for you maybe to elaborate more for us on how to develop listening skills that we can improve on the situation between bad habits between and bad vibes between children and parents.
Importantly, like I mentioned, the two factors of listening where you have to give the full attention, and the issue of having open responses when you do respond. Let's look at the first factor of giving your full attention. When you give your full attention, what attitude are you developing in the child? You're developing an attitude of saying that I am here, I'm paying attention to you, whatever is happening to you is important, and I am listening to you. And in listening to you, you can talk to me, it's a safe environment. So tell me what the issue is. And this goes on from childhood right into adulthood. And it reminds me of a discussion I had yesterday where someone told me, I am dealing with suicides, I'm dealing with shootings, and these are serious issues. Yes, they are serious issues, but if we don't start at the beginning, how are we going to try and resolve the end? Okay? I'm not saying that we have to disregard what is really happening. Yes, we have to come in there with our counseling and whatever we need to do to be able to help them. But not at the expense of neglecting our parents that have toddlers and youngsters, and they are bringing up their children, and how we can inculcate good habits in them. So you need to take both scenarios. But you really start at the beginning. So you need to develop that skill of setting aside what you're doing and really going down on your knees, if need be, to that child, so that you are eye to eye. Remember, when you are standing tall, your child is down there, and you're talking down to that child. What impression are you giving the child? That he's big there, he's great up there, I am nothing here.
Yeah.
You see how you're breaking the self-esteem of that
Yes.
child, which we're going to be talking about in one of our future Saturday Sundays. But you need to come down to that level of that child, and that is why it is so important that you give that attention. You go down to the level of the child, and you need to be on level with that child.
Yes.
You need to tell the child in your behavior that I am listening to you, talk to me. You can use me as a sounding board now. And let's see how we can problem solve.
Yeah.
You're not going to take the problem away from the child.
Yeah.
Yes, with our toddlers and our babies, we are there to care for them, to feed them, to change their nappies, to do all the caring. But as they're growing up, they're going to start fending for themselves. So we can't take those life experiences away from them. But we're going to teach them how to move around those life experiences, how to resolve issues, and how to react to things that would make them feel uncomfortable or sad or unhappy. And that is the first part of the listening skill, is giving that attention to that child with that eye-to-eye contact. The same way in how you're going to discipline a child. When you're going to tell the child, I want you to do this, or I feel upset when you behave in this way, or whatever you need to tell the child. You can't talk down to the child, it's not going to work. You need to come to that eye level to be able to eyeball with that child. So that is the first skill. And it takes, believe me, it takes a conscious effort.
Of course.
It takes a conscious effort because we are so comfortable with what we used to do. And now we have to change. Remember yesterday I talked about changes and challenges. And that changes sometimes we don't want to accept the changes because it's threatening. We feel uncomfortable. But we need to face it. And we need to say, I need to do this. And you have to consciously change your way of thinking, your habits, to be able to bring out the best in the children.
I just see in my mind picture now that can it be seen that when you come down to the child's level physically, it is an indication to the child that you are reaching out to him or her. You care, you show compassion by coming down, actually bowing down and come into eye level and contact with the child. That in itself, the mere physical aspect of that shows to the child something very positive, that you do care, and that is what is needed.
Definitely, because it just gives off a lot of warmth.
Yes.
It shows the child that I am accepted, I'm okay, there's nothing wrong with me, and I can talk if the child is verbal. Okay? If the child is not verbal, it also shows the child that there is that caring. I mean, when we take the baby, we lift the baby up and we look at the baby and we cuddle the baby.
Yeah.
We bring the baby to our level. Okay? We don't cuddle the baby down there.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens with tickling a little here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, that is all part of it, yes. But you need to be at that level because you need to express that warmth, that empathy that I was talking about. You need to feel the way they feel and what they are feeling, but without going through the experience. And that is the first skill in listening. And that's what you need to do. And like I say, it's a conscious effort because it's something that maybe you're not used to, something that that you need to relearn. You know, when we have a bad habit and we need to change that habit, it's very, very difficult because you have to unlearn the bad trait and learn the new trait.
Yeah.
Whereas just doing something, learning a new trait is fine. But if you have to unlearn something, it does take time. And it follows a process. And sometimes you're not going to see results overnight. It doesn't work that way. You know? First of all, if you're not used to doing it, your child's going to look at you and say, now where did you come from? You know, I mean, they'll say that to themselves, or if they're verbal enough, they'll tell you as well. I mean, what's happening, you know?
Yeah.
So it's something that is a process, okay? And that moves you on to your the second part of the listening skill, where we talk about to be able to respond to them in a way that they will be able to talk to you. Remember, we don't make value judgments, okay? And this takes us to Quranic injunctions where we are not there to judge.
Of course.
Our Creator Allah is the judge of all. When our children misbehave, do we look at the child or do we look at the behavior? And in 90% of the time, we brand the child.
Yeah.
That child is naughty.
Yes.
And yet it is the behavior that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Okay? So we need to change that concept we have. And we need to say, you know, it's not the child, it's the behavior. So let me see what is really happening. And I can only know what is happening if I'm going to interact and engage. And to be able to interact and engage, I need to listen. And then I go back to that philosophy that I have. Listen to twice as much as what you talk.
Yes.
And when you do talk, that skill that you need to learn, have open responses. In the sense that if the child says, I am sad, how are you going to respond? Are you just going to say, oh, you're sad? Okay. So what's happening? The child will say, first of all, you haven't acknowledged my feelings,
Yeah.
right? So how can I talk to you and tell you why I'm feeling sad? You see the consequences. Whereas if you had to say, I can see that you are feeling sad,
Yeah.
and maybe we should look at why you are feeling sad. You're teaching the child that, you know, you can talk, it's a safe environment.
Yeah.
You're also leaving it open so that the child will respond, because you're not closing it off, and that's
Yeah.
what we mean by open responses. And you're giving leeway to the child to express their feelings verbally. And a child that can express their negative feelings verbally, I'm looking now only at negative feelings, will that child have the necessity of acting out to show the negative feelings? Because many a times we only respond to that negative behavior. So we're telling the child, it's okay, I mean, I'll only respond if you're going to act and if you're going to misbehave.
Yeah.
You know? So we need to inculcate that it's okay, you can talk, I'm here to listen, tell me about it, and let's see how we can solve it. I might not be able to take it away, and I'm not going to take it away, but I'm going to maybe teach you how to solve it.
So what you are saying that we should actually train our children to have interactive discussion with us. Because as you were speaking, you know what comes to mind is the incident of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he received the divine commandment from Allah to make qurban of his son. He could have just carried out the order, but he went through a process of discussion with his son. He said, this is the order that I got from Allah. What do you say, my son? And he allowed his son to interact with him. So if we can implement that particular beautiful lesson that Allah teaches here, that we speak to our children, they in return speak back to us. In other words, conversation between parent and child, I think that will take us a long way towards goodness.
Through such, you touched such an important point, and sometimes we read this in the Quran and we don't pay so much attention, but what a beautiful example of how you need to interact with your children, of that principle of discussion, of principle of listening, of principle of interacting with children. And that goes into what we want to do in positive parenting.
Inshallah. MashaAllah. Is there any other particular points you want to raise with regard for us to develop listening skills to work towards a better relationship with our children?
I think just one important point that I would like to make here is that we need to look at attitude. What is our attitude? What are we teaching our children? In the sense that when we are going to try and now listen to our children, what attitude are we teaching our children? What attitude did we teach our children? In the sense that you now need to help them unlearn what they have learned or what they've seen in you. You must remember, children imitate parents. And your behavior is a model for them. Now you've modeled a certain way of parenting, and now you're going to try and model a different. So you need to help them to unlearn that in a way that you need to be honest with them and tell them that there are good ways that I've now learned to be able to interact with you in a way that is going to make you a better adult in the end. And you are going to help me. Can we do that together? So you're engaging them now straight away. And that is what the crux of the whole issue is, engagement. And that goes to the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, where, I mean, he engaged his son. What do you feel about it?
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to accept your idea, but I'm going to get your feelings and how you feel about it.
Yes.
Okay? And if that child knows that feelings are going to be accepted and acknowledged, very unlikely that the child would differ to how you feel as well.
In other words, a child must know that they've got the right to express themselves and that the expression is valued. The expression is appreciated by the parent, who will be then there as a guiding light for that particular child.
Definitely. There's just one thing that I would like to actually add to that, if I may. Just sometimes we got so much paper. I would just like to add on core issues and ideas that we need to look at, and listening to feelings is your core issue. That's what we talked about. And what we need to remember, there are no right or wrong feelings, whether it is negative or positive. There are no right or wrong feelings. All feelings are feelings, and we need to accept those feelings. Okay? We need to accept the fact that people, children in this case, will act badly if they feel badly. And we need to address that behavior. So we need to teach these children that having negative feelings is fine, but how you're going to express it is what you need to look at. Right? Children's behavior gives us important information, and we need to be aware. And that goes into what we discussed yesterday about the goals of misbehavior. We want to know, why did the child commit suicide? We didn't take into consideration what was going on and what was happening. Okay? Many a parent, let's say there's a parent that comes along and says, my child attempted suicide. What do I do now? You as a parent, you need help. The child needs help too. I'm not going to say, let's go to the positive parenting manual and let's see what you're going to do. Because this should have started from the beginning. But now that the problem has surfaced, we need to address the problem. And that is why I made that comment that yes, you need to have the start and you need to look at the end. So yes, at the end you're going to have counseling and you're going to have whatever needs to be done. But we need to look at that behavior. And then the essence of listening is the ability to recognize and acknowledge what someone else is feeling. And that feeling is valid for them. We do not have to agree or disagree with them. And that is important. And then lastly, children's feelings needs to be acknowledged, but the behavior connected to these feelings may need to be limited and redirected. And that's where your disciplining comes in.
MashaAllah. Dr. Hoosain Ebrahim, once again today, alhamdulillah, you have done an excellent job by educating us, informing us, and teaching us various ways. And I'm sure the listeners and the viewers have benefited tremendously again, like yesterday. And hopefully everyone will take these points of guidance and rectify situations which need to be rectified, inshallah. Because we've got numerous problems out there in the community. Wallahi, believe you me, as an imam, I can tell you, you will fall on your back. The ordinary person will fall on the back. You, of course, as a psychologist, know about the problems out there. But people who don't know, they will definitely fall on the back if they come to know the amount of problems and the seriousness of certain situations out in our community. It's not easy for people to come to terms. Why did my son commit suicide? Why did my daughter commit suicide? Why this? Why that? There's a lot of unanswered questions, and we need to tackle this. Alhamdulillah, you have laid the basis today again for us to solve certain situations, inshallah. So as we are about to wrap up this program for the day, is there any last comment or nasiha that you would like to share with us?
Yes, I want you as a parent out there, all you parents, I want you to do this. Number one, look at why the behavior is taking place. Number two, look at what is the behavior telling you. Look at the goals of what the child is trying to achieve by misbehaving or behaving in a certain way. Number three, pay attention to the child. Number four, acknowledge the child's feelings. And number five, talk to the child in a way so that the child will listen to you. Listen to the child, number six, in a way that the child will talk to you. Practice these few points, and we can then move on to our other topics on Saturday and Sunday, inshallah.
Inshallah. Shukran kathiran. Thank you very much for a very lovely and interactive discussion, and allowing me to pose certain questions to you and answering it so eloquently. Alhamdulillah. Hopefully next week we will have Mr. Sattar Parker also in the studio with us on the panel to sort of interact with us, inshallah. But for right now, we are wrapping up due to the time of iftar coming rapidly approaching us. So I just want to wish everyone for the next few minutes or the half an hour or so that we have towards iftar time, kindly remember that this is the time that we need to engage with Allah. We need to have conversation with Allah. Make your du'as, because du'as are mustajab in this glorious month of Ramadan, especially at this particular time. Make dua for those situations which are not so healthy between parents and children, that Allah brings healing. Allah brings healing to all those situations which actually need remedy and healing. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. May Almighty Allah bless us in this beautiful month of Ramadan. May Allah accept our fasting. And to you, Dr. Hoosain Ebrahim, thank you very much for sacrificing your time and voluntarily coming on this panel to share your knowledge and your expertise with us. I can only ask the viewership to join me in prayer that Almighty Allah bless you tremendously, inshallah, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always keep you good and spare you and preserve you for many more years, that our community can continue to benefit from you, inshallah.
Ameen.
Any last word from you before we greet?
All I can say is, if this is the little that I can do for the community, alhamdulillah, I am happy.
MashaAllah. Shukran so much. So from myself, Sheikh Abdurrahman Alexander, Imam here at the Masjidul Quds in Gatesville, and of course from our technical team, my personal director and friend, Brother Siraj Parker, as well as Brother Anwar Umar. Shukran to both of you for sacrificing your time and bringing this program into the very comforts of the homes of our viewership. May Allah bless you and your families, and thank you very much to the Board of Trust, the Executive Committee, and the Imamat of Masjidul Quds. So we greet you here from Masjidul Quds. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imagine a world where each person has access to their basic rights. A world where everyone is equal. Imagine a world where each person will have an equal share in each single seed of wheat. Where each child has the freedom to learn. This Ramadan, we ask you to feed the fasting in 14 countries around the world with AMA. Provide an iftar box for 100 Rand, a hamper for 1,500 Rand, or feed a village for 15,000 Rand. Donate today at Africa Muslims Agency and imagine the difference you can make.
Oh